Our second lesson, our gospel lesson, comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, verses 40 through 56. I'm going to be reading from the New Revised Standard Version, just a little different than what's in your pews. There's a couple of words that jumped out at me in this translation, so I wanted to share them with you. Luke 8, verse 40. Now when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for them. Just then there came a man named Jairus, a leader of the synagogue. He fell at Jesus' feet and begged him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years old, who was dying. As he went, the crowds pressed in on him. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for about 12 years. And though she had spent all she had on physicians, no one could cure her. She came up behind Jesus and touched the fringe of his clothes, and immediately her hemorrhage stopped. Then Jesus asked, "Who touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd's surrounding you and press in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I noticed that power had gone out from me." When the woman saw that she could not remain hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before Jesus, she declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." While Jesus was still speaking, someone came from the leader's house to say, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher any longer." When Jesus heard this, he replied, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be saved." When he came to the house, he did not allow anyone to enter with him except Peter, John, and James, and the child's father and mother. They were all weeping and wailing for her, but he said, "Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But Jesus took the girl by the hand and called out to her, "Child, get up." Her spirit returned, and she got up at once. Then he directed them to give her something to eat. Her parents were astounded, but Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what had happened. This ends the reading of our scripture for the day. Sort of two healing stories wrapped up together. Would you pray with me now as I begin the sermon? Dear Lord, we pray that your message would be spoken here today, either through me or in spite of me. Speak to us about the desperation we feel sometimes when we're waiting on you. Help us to understand it and help us to grow in faith so that we can remain in those times and remain faithful in those times of waiting. It's difficult for us to do that, Lord. But we also know that you call us to do that, to be patient, to wait, and to trust in your timing. Give us patience, give us faithfulness, and give us hope, Lord. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of all our hearts be pleasing in your sight, for you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So I've got a couple questions for you all to kind of think about this morning. Has there ever been a time when you were about to lose faith? Discouraged and kind of losing hope and trusting as hard as you can in God, but just feeling like you don't know if you're going to make it, or you don't know if things are going to work out. That feeling of desperation, that feeling that without God, we're just going to be lost. Yeah, I felt that too before. Have you ever prayed and prayed and prayed, and for a long time, nothing seemed to be happening? That would be the not yet in God's healing power and God's amazing timing. We all get discouraged and worn down and even come to the point of almost giving up. You know what? That's usually when I see God work the most, just at the point where we're about to give up. That's when God steps in. You know, even people of faith can struggle, especially when God's help is delayed. Sometimes we can ask ourselves, well, what am I doing wrong, God? Why aren't you helping? So what do you all do when Jesus' help doesn't come when you expect it to or when you want it to? What do you do when you have to wait on the Lord? How do you keep going? It can be pretty difficult at times, can't it? We tend to get discouraged. Usually it's a matter of weeks or months, not years, isn't it? It doesn't take an awful lot to get us discouraged. We counted off 12 seconds here with my little timer and we thought, wow, that was a long time for silence. He's going to do something now. And then that was 12 seconds. Imagine 12 years. The pain, the weakness, the inconvenience, and the embarrassment that this poor woman must have been through. She spent all her money on doctors. I'm sure some good, some bad. She must have been discouraged and worn down, even desperate. But something changes in her. She hears about Jesus, this healing man from Nazareth. And she says to herself, you know, if I can just get up to him and touch him, I know that I will be healed. I believe in his power. So she makes her way to this place where Jesus is coming through, and she pushes through the crowd, and then she finally is able just to touch him a little bit. And immediately she's healed. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing what a little bit of our faith and a lot of Jesus' power can do. She's healed. But then Jesus notices that something happened, and all of a sudden she's embarrassed to admit what she's done. But she does, and Jesus blesses her and sends her on her way. How come healing can be that simple sometimes? Just a touch is all it takes. And then other times it takes 12 years or longer or a lifetime for things to be healed. We don't understand all of that, do we? Well, this story is wrapped up in the middle of the other healing story about Jairus and Jairus' daughter. You see, he's afraid of losing his daughter, and he sends for Jesus, and Jesus promises to come. And there's a whole group of people saying, we're going to watch this healing. This is going to be awesome, because it's Jesus. And on the way, there's the interruption of this woman, and she's healed while they're headed to save Jairus' daughter. I doubt that the healing part of the woman took more than, 15, 20, 30 seconds, a minute at the most. But it's immediately after this that the awful news comes and that the little girl is said to be dead. And everyone around this man gives up and says, well, we might as well go home now because at least we saw one healing today. The other one's not going to happen. But who doesn't give up hope? Who's the one that says, come on, let's keep going? It's Jesus. Is Jesus our encourager? Yes. And listen to what he says. Only believe, and she will be saved. They get to the house and everyone's mourning and crying and, trying to console the mother, I'm sure. And Jesus kind of has everybody leaves and brings the group down to just a few people. And then he takes the little girl by the hand and speaks to her gently, child, get up. Her spirit comes to her, comes back to her, and she gets up, she breathes, and she even eats. Pretty awesome. Jesus brought a child back from death. A miraculous healing story. And that's awesome, isn't it? So do we believe in Jesus' power to heal? Absolutely. Do we believe that Jesus can restore any situation or relationship or rift in a family? Yes, we do. Do we believe that Jesus' timing is better than ours?
Not always.
We don't always believe that Jesus' timing is better than ours. Jesus' timing is always better than ours.
Yes.
But we can certainly struggle when Jesus' timing is different than ours. Especially when God delays something that we're hoping and praying for, and we don't know the reason why. That's when we doubt, and our belief level goes down. I think faith is like a gas tank, and belief is like a gas tank. It isn't a switch. It isn't something that turns on and turns off. It's something that varies from time to time. Sometimes it's like a gas tank that's, this just topped right off, and you have all sorts of faith, and you're strong. And then there's other times when, you can't get back to whatever fills you back up, and your tank gets emptier and emptier and emptier. Yeah, that's faith. We struggle sometimes. That's because we're human, and it's okay. But when our tank is full, or at least half full, it's fairly easy for us to say, well, I'm not sure why at this point, but I believe that God has a better plan and God understands whatever is going to happen better than I do. It's when we're running on fumes that gets really, really tough to do. And I find myself in that situation from time to time also. I find myself doubting and discouraged at times. I get to the point where I say, Jesus, I want you to act now. Now, not later. I understand later. I get it, but now, please. Yeah. I question myself at times like these. I've even questioned God at times. For a while, I can say, I trust you, God, and your perfect timing. I believe in your perfect timing. Give me strength to get there, to that perfect timing. But after a long time and after a while, the devil has a way of creeping in, and poking us and just making us doubt a little bit. Even second guess ourselves and God. There have been times when I've doubted my own faith, and I'm worried that I did something wrong, and that God is punishing me. Who puts those thoughts into your head? Satan is the one who puts those thoughts into your head. And I know a lot of people experience that, because many, many times when I've gone to visit folks and they're going through a rough spot, or they're getting older and they're kind of shut in, and they're on the edge of that. So many times I've heard people say, I just wish I knew what I did to make God punish me like this. I don't believe that God punishes us. I do believe that we, are responsible for our own actions, and we're responsible for the consequences of our actions. But I don't see that as God's punishment and God's deciding to either test us or to do something bad to us because of what we did. After a long time, I have to fight to keep my faith when things are a real struggle. But this I know. In my life and all throughout the Bible, God has always kept His word. God is always faithful. Jesus always brings healing. It's just a matter of timing, of God's timing, and understanding that and believing in it. I think I've said this before. You all know that while I was in Messina, Nettie worked for hospice and dealt with a great number of people who were too sick to be cured. And I know that there were a lot of doctors that felt like they failed because the person passed away. And I'm not sure if it was just the repetition and the number of funerals that I did and the number of connections with other people's lives that I had who were dying while in Messina. But it really, really made me understand and made me believe that death is the final and ultimate healing. And that death wasn't losing the battle, but death was gaining the victory. That is the plan for each and every one of us. If we dare step back and look at what God does throughout history, people are born, they live, many have children. Not everybody has children, but that's kind of the plan. And the plan is for us to grow old and pass on, and then live with God and Jesus forever. That's a rough thing for us who are left behind. I know that. But that's a wonderful thing for us who are ready and believe that God has something for us beyond the, shall I say, 70, 80, 90, 100 years that is the human life expectancy these days. Even if we live to be 110, that's a pretty short span in God's time. It's a long time for us, but it's a pretty short time in God's span. I believe in Jesus' power of healing. I have seen physical healings. I have prayed for physical healings and seen them. Folks who have had pneumonia and were at a point where the doctors said, well, it's pretty much just a matter of time. And well, it's not that I come in and save the day or anything, but I come in and I pray for them and prayed with the family, and God's decided that it wasn't their time. And after some medicine and after some recuperation, they've come back to church, and they've sat in the congregation, and the congregation, looks at them and sees that I once was almost lost, and now I'm here and alive. I've seen that. I've seen emotional healings. I've seen relationships that were distant come back together. And those kind of things are wonderful, wonderful events that we see a lot. And they're there because they happen because of Jesus' love for us and because of his healing power. I believe that Jesus heals. Amen.